Session.
I move to return from exec session.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Welcome to the April 16th regular meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Township Trustees. Glad you all could make it. We're going to try to hold the meeting to 5 hours tonight. We're on the clock, so
Yeah, let's try.
if you would, please join us in the most important thing we're going to do tonight. That's the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay.
I move to adopt the agenda with modifications.
Second.
Got it right.
You did.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Okay, good. With that, we have a public hearing. It's on case Anderson 1-2105. I would like to officially open that public hearing on the Anderson Township zoning resolution reformat and text amendments. Paul Drury is going to walk us through it.
Good evening. Thank you.
Crawl us through it, I hope.
This is a request, as you stated, to reformat primarily and associated miscellaneous text amendments that go along with reformatting the zoning resolution. A little history: the trustees initiated the reformat of the zoning resolution in February of 2015. This was heard by Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission on March the 5th, and then by the Township Zoning Commission on March the 23rd. Both the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission and Zoning Commission recommended approval with minor changes. So when we started this process late last year, there were several goals to reformat the zoning resolution. It was to create a modern and user-friendly zoning resolution. It was just to address the complicated numbering system of the zoning resolution, which had been modified throughout the years. Various text amendments have been made, but different numbering systems have been implemented. Also, just to reorganize the document to make it more user-friendly for not only developers, but also for residents and for staff as well. The first part of the process was deciding on a layout, and the township and staff were encouraging our consultant, and we've heard this from the stakeholders of the community as well, that it needed to be easy to read, it needed to contain additional graphics to help explain the text, and as I stated before, just an updated numbering system. So some of the new features of this document, which our current document does not have, it will be easier to use online. The slide above shows the links, so you can now go to the table of contents, and on the digital version in particular, you can click on those links and it will take you to your destination. Same as well as if you're in the table of contents and you want to find out what your fence regulations may be, then you can click on that and it'll take you directly to that page, whereas the current document is just online. It's just a PDF document. It can be somewhat cumbersome to maneuver through. We're also changing the numbering system. It's proposed to change the numbering system throughout. The number of articles in the zoning resolution have been reduced, and just a reorganization, again, for user friendliness. Other features: enhanced tables that are easier to understand, that make the data easier to understand. Enhanced graphics, again, to help explain the text if you're a graphic versus a text person. And as well as incorporating those just throughout. This is an example of our single-family residential zones and the regulations for setbacks. There are also now graphs and pictures that help explain what that text is actually saying. These are also included in the definition section, which is very critical. The definitions have been moved to the rear of the document, whereas before they were in the middle, at the front, and in various articles depending on when those definitions were added, and now they also contain graphics to help explain. definitions. So going through the process, again, there were recommendations from Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission, and all those have been incorporated into the draft that's before you. So I won't go through every single one, but it was mainly clarifying some of the illustrations, and you can't see it very well. These have all been corrected or revised. And again, most of them refer back to some of the new graphics that were added. And again, I just wanted to stress that the only text amendments that are being proposed with this is the referencing of the new section numbers. The content of the zoning resolution is not changing. The Zoning Commission had concerns about the conditional use table, which staff did as well, so this was the outcome of addressing that comment. Now, with conditional uses, it is on 2 pages, but with the open document, you can see a conditional use, what its criteria is, and the criteria is all on 1 page. And again, it's just easier to use. So with that, that's just a very abbreviated presentation, but our consultant made a presentation to you back in February, I believe it was. So, do you have any questions? Be happy to answer.
Just one comment, if you make it any easier, even the trustees would understand it, so that's pretty good.
Not all of them.
Not all, 2 out of 3.
Good job, Paul.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak on behalf of or in opposition to Case Anderson 1-2105, please come forward and state your name, address. Nobody cares.
Interesting stuff.
It is important. This thing it really is great. The tweaking that was done on this is incredible, so we really appreciate all the effort, time and effort that's gone into it. If no one wishes to speak on this matter, I'll close the public hearing and ask if the board wishes to address the matter with a resolution.
Yeah, I move to adopt a resolution approving the reformatted Anderson Township zoning resolution and associated text amendments.
Second.
Any discussion?
Good job.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you, Paul. Great
Thanks,
job.
Paul.
We really tell everybody this is really great. Wonderful. Okay. With that, I believe Mr. Dale Bartholomew, President of the Anderson Township Park Board, wishes to make a presentation to our board.
Nah, no presentations. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for having us here. With the opinion from the Ohio Attorney General's office that we both asked for, the Board of Park Commissioners will not be giving a presentation tonight. Would you like to explain the Ohio Attorney General's thing, or would you like me to attempt to? Or better yet, Margaret.
We'd like Margaret too. She's...
Margaret, if you would, please.
Certainly. Early in March, staff here and I sat down with representatives from the Park District and their council to talk through the tax levy process and to look at the statutes, because we were concerned about whether it was in fact appropriate, whether the Board of Trustees was authorized to consider the question of the submission of the Park Board's levy to the Board of Elections. And there was some disagreement in terms of how to interpret the statute. So Counsel for the Park Board and I agreed that I would apply to the Ohio Attorney General for an opinion interpreting the statute and giving us guidance as to how we should go forward, and ask that they do it expeditiously, because it's important that the Park Board be able to complete their proceedings. If they are to put a levy on the ballot, they have certain time deadlines prescribed by statute for when they have to submit their documents to the Board of Elections. So with all that in mind, we asked for expeditious action, and we were fortunate enough to receive it on April 14th, so just a couple of days ago. The Ohio Attorney General rendered its opinion, and the bottom line is that the Board of Township Trustees, which of course we knew is a creature of statute, and they only possess those powers that are set forth in the statute. And because this was part of the reason we went to the OOG to begin with, because we weren't sure the statute was clear. But the OAG has come back and interpreted, said it was clear on its face, and that in those instances where a township park district owns territory or property outside of the unincorporated area of the township, that removes the authority of the Board of Township Trustees to consider requests by the Park District Board of Park Commissioners to review a levy request. So it was the OAG's opinion, and I certainly passed that along to the board, that because the Anderson Township Park District owns 4 parcels of property, 2 of which lie within the incorporated territory of the village of Fairfax, and 2 of which lie within the incorporated territory of the village of Newtown, that they own property outside then of the unincorporated territory of the township. And therefore, the Board of Township Trustees is not authorized to review the tax levy request of the Park District.
Very
And I'm
nice.
happy to respond to any questions.
With that said, we would and do appreciate at a later date if we could use your forum for showing the public how much the residents did on our survey and what kind of results we had of positive of what they think that the Park District should be able to get money-wise to build beach acres and other items in other parks. The Board of Park Commissioners are going to still work hard on trying to reduce that levy down in cost with other entities and among ourselves of going through other items now that we, in a sense, don't have this hurdle, and you're not a hurdle, but item that we had to go through with the Board of Trustees, which now doesn't need to be done. But a big thanks to the community. The turnout in our survey was tremendous. Strongly supportive of what we were attempting to do, making Anderson a better place to live and play, and we really appreciate that from the community. Do you have any questions? And we'll get back together when we can do a presentation.
I'm sure these folks will want to know when the next meeting is going to be of your board so they can
Our
come
next
and
board meeting
talk to
is
you.
scheduled for, help me, 12th? May 12th. So,
May 12th.
come one, come all. We'd love to have you there. It will be at the Julep's office, at Julep's Park. Time is 6:30. I'd rather have that, I'll have that presented to you at that meeting from the consultant that did it. It's the same consultant that the school board used. So Mr. Fox will come in to do that. At that time, that would be a time to be able to see that. But 6:30 at Julep's Park will do that. And it is all online. If you go to andersonparks.com, all the results are right there, every piece of it. Yes, ma'am.
What's an opportunity, because several of my neighbors, have expressed that they were not offered an opportunity to respond to a survey other than an online, and if they did not have access to an online survey, that they were not able to respond to your questions, which I found to only address a portion of what they requested.
Okay. I'd like to know what staff member turned them down, because I do know that some were mailed out. I personally requested that some be mailed out. Matter of fact, to the lady sitting right next to you, and she received hers, so.
Excuse me, pardon me.
I apologize. It's your
This is a meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Trustees. If you have a question to address to this board, wonderful. We're
After the trustee
happy to hear
meeting,
them, but,
I'd be more than happy to
Right.
discuss it with you all.
thank you. Okay?
No, tonight if you like. All right. Anything else?
No, I would say, Dale, that just, and so there is no question, I think the board was prepared to vote on this issue until we found out 48 hours ago what the situation was. We did not know what you were going to ask for I didn't know until early Saturday morning as I was going through the thing about 1 o'clock in the morning. So there hasn't been a lot of time to
Correct.
absorb it all and to understand it all. So now hopefully you have enough time for the public
Yes.
to at least understand it. Whether they agree with it or not, that's a different story,
I
but
agree. I concur that, yes.
wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thanks, Dale.
Thank you. Thank you, Margaret.
Excuse me, I did have a question, Ms. Coney, if I may, regarding this issue.
Regarding what, please?
Regarding this issue that we were currently discussing. I'm curious, if I may, to find out, how this question came to light and who initiated the question regarding...
I think she answered that question right in the very beginning. So there was no question. She said how it came about. We had requested, as Margaret would, any action that we were going to take. She reviewed it. She was alerted to the concern about the fact that somehow during the course of the last, since 1988 or whenever, there had been 6 or 8 amendments to the legislation, but one of them very clearly stated that. When she presented it to the Park District attorneys, they questioned it too, because we've gone all these years thinking that we had that authority. That was when she went and
Yeah, that's true.
the two partied together and made that request. It's that simple. It was not the Park District trying to get out of anything at all.
Yeah.
It was,
We,
that's why we have a law director.
all the resolutions that the board considers as counsel to the board, and we always begin it with the question of, does the board have authority to take whatever action this particular resolution prescribes? And that's how we begin all discussion.
Thank you. And I'll take one
Yeah.
other question. As it pertains to the law in the Ohio Attorney General's office. So if the Park District owns land outside the jurisdiction of the legal,
Of the township, outside the township, yeah.
but I mean, so is there no law for the trustees or local government? Is there no local government oversight of anything that the Park District does? Because obviously if that same law applies to Newtown or if it applies to Fairfax.
No,
Yeah,
no, it does not. That's not correct.
Incorporated, the court board would be independent of any government.
Remember,
No, it's actually the statutory process for tax levies. There are other provisions of the Chapter 511 dealing with township park districts in general that still knit the entities together.
in simple terms, the difference between township government and incorporated government is that villages and cities can do anything that the state Ohio Revised Code does not prohibit. The opposite is true of townships. We can only do those things by law that the statute specifically says that we can do. It's a pain, but it's the way it has always been, and it does get modified. The answer to the question of this particular issue is, yes, could it be changed? Could we go back and to eliminate this or modify the language? It would take a legislative action, and they'd have to have enough votes to pass it in the state legislature. That's the way it would change. No, none. Right. We have one, we've always said we had two things that we could do. One was we appoint the park board, and number two, we approve the levies. We've been under the impression we could approve it forever. Apparently, this change, we haven't quite figured out, because there were so many modifications to the language, exactly when it was made, but we'll know in another day or two. So, that's Joe.
That's the second.
Nice to see you.
The first part, you still have control because you do appoint the members of the park board. Is that right?
That's not control, but we do have the authority to appoint those
You decide
people.
who's going to be on the park board.
That is correct.
And how many people are on the park board?
5.
And when are their terms up?
Well, we have 2 that are up very shortly.
When, very shortly?
And then they serve, is it 3-year terms?
And when are those 2 terms up?
When?
Be like months, years, weeks?
Month, I think, maybe.
Yes, it's sometime in May, yes.
And so will that be
Right.
public, or is that going to be publicized that there are 2 openings on the park board?
We always do, always have.
And
Right.
how do you submit, if you're interested in being on the park board?
As a letter of interest.
Okay. And
Just
when-
that simple.
When are those letters of interest due?
Well, we haven't, I don't think we've published it yet, so,
But it's in May.
well, let me carry it one more step, Joe. The interesting thing about terms for these folks is that they continue to serve until replaced. So if we do not appoint 2 more in May or reappoint them in May, they would continue to serve until such time. So there's not necessarily a rush to do it, there's no deadline as such.
So it could be
Okay.
May, June, July, could be any time after that.
Okay, but
Right.
somebody that's interested in being on the park board should submit.
Absolutely, and go ahead and do it now.
If you have a form
Absolutely.
to do that, I know some people that are interested.
Please do.
Is there a form online?
Right.
Okay, well, and maybe you can mail out something to these people that are interested.
Typically, what we just request is a letter of interest, and that can be in the form of an email or a letter. If you choose to submit your, background, it doesn't have to be a resume per se, but background information about particular skills that may benefit the position. And you can send it to Suzanne Parker, who is our Assistant Administrator for Human Resources at the Township office here.
And how about the other 3 positions? When are they on?
I don't have that information in front of me. There is a list of on the Park District's website, they do have a list of board members and their terms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That answer your question, Joe? Okay, thank you. Unless someone has a specific question relating to this topic, we'll move forward to the public forum section of this meeting. At every meeting, the Board of Trustees set aside time for individuals who wish to address the board on any topic. We only ask that you try to clearly and succinctly present your comments, limit them to 5 minutes. If you wish to speak, we ask that you give us your name and address, and we are going to ask that you avoid repetition. For those folks who sent us emails, and we got a bunch of emails, we really appreciate it. There was a great deal of thought that went into those comments, and we've already heard those, so that it's not necessary to repeat it, even though we're not even going to vote on it anyway. But it was some really interesting commentary, and we do appreciate that. So with that, I'll open the public forum. Anyone who wishes to come and address the board, please come forward now. There you go. Mr. Schran.
My name is Gregory Schrand. I live on Little Dry Run, 2603. I realize now that the board does not have the authority over the park board. Nevertheless, I think they have kind of a bully pulpit in that they might well use their expertise to advise the park board on their procedures, and I would urge them to do so. I'm a former teacher of Forest Hills School District, and I would accent forest. And I see a logo up here for our township. It's a tree. We have a wonderful green space program. We also have a property called Johnson Hills, and I believe that we have a perfect model that I think the trustees should recommend to the park board. The parallel model is Withrow Nature Preserve, which has a mansion, which has lots of woods, and has lots of trees, much in keeping with the image that Anderson Township has on its logo, in the name of its school district, in its green spaces, and I believe we're also a tree city, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So I would urge the board to consider that and use your influence, if we might call it that, although it's not a legal oversight, to advise the park board to keep Anderson Township like that as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Anyone else?
Ruth Hardy, 7757 Anderson Oaks. I'm just curious, are those two villages outside of the incorporated Anderson Township, are they subject to the park levy?
Would you repeat that? I'm sorry.
The two parcels, Village of Fairfax, Village of Newtown, are they subject to the park levy?
Are they part of the...
Subject to the tax.
Subject to the levy. I don't know.
No.
This was part of the discussion that we had with the Council for the Park District and how the Board of Elections reviews and handles or processes the documentation that's provided to them. In other words, how does the Board of Election, and I can't speak to their districting and, wards and precincts and all of that, but we have to go along with what the OAG says, which is that they're outside of our perimeter, and therefore we don't approve the levy. My expectation would be that a property owner or elector, I should say is the right term, outside of the township who's impacted would have a vote. That would be my expectation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Bob Drake. My address is 1104 Burney Lane. I have spoken to this group of trustees previously. I believe it was October of 2014. Each of you was kind enough to, engage me in a conversation outside of this meeting. Mr. Jackson and I spoke immediately following for, several minutes. I met outside of this meeting, since it was late at that point, with both Mr. Pappas and Mr. Girth, okay? Each of whom was kind enough to offer me their thoughts and comments. My concern at that time, and the reason that I began attending park board meetings, like many of the other people here, was my concern for Johnson Hills Park, okay? The park board has $20 million worth of plans for the development of that park. In my opinion, and I believe in the majority of Anderson Township residents' opinion, okay, a large majority, most of those plans are a waste, okay? Mr. Sherhan, suggested as much in his comments. Many of us have been lobbying the park board to alter their master plan and their vision. In February, we had a standing room only crowd. Mr. Girth, I believe that you were present at that time as well and can attest to that. I'm sure that you will agree that the sentiment of that crowd was strongly opposed to virtually every plan that, the park board had proposed. Unfortunately, what we seem to have here is a situation where we've unintentionally created an oligarchy. We have a handful of individuals who have unilateral authority to do everything. I've been recently told at a park board meeting that they do not have to listen to public opinion, that they can do anything they choose, with the money, and that, according to you, seems to be the case. I find that a little troubling. Okay. There's no mechanism by which, the public can have an impact. We can petition, and those petitions will be ignored. We can speak, our comments will be ignored. I think that we have a serious problem with the mechanism, and as trustees, I'm hoping that you can find a creative way to address that concern. There is a second major issue, and that issue is the levy that we've just discussed this evening. For property and renovations that, according to the figures of the county auditor, should total $8,770,006. Okay, let's say $8.8 million. Okay, the park board has placed a levy on the ballot for a figure just short of $25 million.
Wait a minute, what did you just say? They placed it on the list?
It will be placed on the ballot,
Don't say that. That's not true. Don't say that, Bob. Absolutely not true. They may, but they have not, so let's...
They have not yet.
Let's not make claims about something. They already said, Dale was very clear, they're going to go back and regroup and relook at it. So why would you make such a statement like that, Bob?
Well,
just because I know your feelings about Johnson Park, and I empathize with you, but that's not our issue at this point. So we appreciate your comments, but let's not make statements that aren't true.
I will make a statement that is true, that the only two figures they discussed in terms of the levy were the $25 million figure and 0.9 mil levy also for 20 years, which would raise slightly less than that. There were 6 potential levy amounts considered. Okay, the smallest levy, a 0.6 mil 15-year levy, would more than cover the costs according to their figures and according to the figures on Dusty Road's chart that was submitted to the board, and I'm sure you've received copies. I think that, there are other actions that you as a board or as Board of Trustees may take. Okay? I believe, and you know your budgets and how you handle affairs far better than I, but I believe that you have TIF funds that are sometimes used to cover expenses for things like police, and fire runs, and, perhaps other coverage, okay? I think that, there are many mechanisms by which you as a board can encourage, to say it politely, the park board to, reduce the levy they're proposing substantially, okay? We would ask the people who I believe I represent, would ask that you consider, okay, refusing to give any endorsement at all to any levy that exceeds the amount necessary, okay, for the purchase of the Beach Acres Recplex and its renovations, okay. To do other than that is really to establish a precedent and raise funds for a purpose that hasn't been discussed publicly and hasn't been endorsed by the public. Okay. We would ask also that you consider finding a way where the public may have substantial and influential input into park board decisions, which currently does not exist. Okay. None of us, spend our days or hours, studying, how the trustees work in Anderson Township and how operations in Anderson Township work. We rely on you to do that on our behalf, okay? And we simply are here in a rather large number for a trustee meeting, I believe, to encourage you to find ways, help us find ways to have an impact on the park board's decision, both in terms of Johnson Hills Park and also regarding this levy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Anyone else wish to address this board?
Can I say something? You mentioned Johnson Hills Park is clearly a topic you're interested in.
Yes.
Can someone from the Park District please tell Mr. Drake when the Community Input Day is for Johnson Hill Park?
Thank you, Mr. Drake.
Name's Dale Bartholomew, 6666 Salem. There's an open house, glad you mentioned it, Bob. April 25th from 9 a.m. to 11 at Johnson Hills Park, to where the public can put their input on looking at Phase 1, if you want to call it that, a broken down section of the original layout to see what they would like to see and have in the park. So April 25th, we'd love to have you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Anyone else wish to address this board? Yes, sir. Tom?
I don't need the microphone, but...
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. We want to get a good camera shot here.
Let's put a wide angle on it. I'm Steve Mislove, my wife Kara here. We live at 8145 Wycliffe in the sanctuary at Ivy Hills, corner of Crooked Stick and Wycliffe. I want to thank the trustees for opening this up and making it very, making the public very aware. Okay, obviously from the turnout, I've seen pictures of some of your other meetings. This is pretty dense in here.
There are a couple more here.
Yes, yes, just a few. I'm trying to get a handle on this entire park situation, and I know that we're chewing water a little bit. I don't want to do that. In Anderson, as a resident, we have an inordinate amount, in my estimation, of really nice parks. And they're spread out geographically all over the place. I'm learning, as tonight, Newtown, that's under your umbrella. It isn't, that park? I don't know. That's what there was. Okay. There's other parks then that you guys oversee? That are not in Anderson Township? No. Okay, it's only Anderson Township, I'm sorry. Must have been with the legalese.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Well, here, in a nutshell, we need more tax revenue in Anderson. In parks, as much as I love them, and I have one that is just absolutely wonderful right behind me, it doesn't generate revenue. They don't. None of them do. Serpentine Wall, Sawyer Point, they just really don't generate revenue. They do cost a lot over time to maintain and keep up. And to develop a park that's under, I'm no expert, okay, I can tell you how to make a cheese coney, but to develop a park that seems to be low maintenance is really it's costly. And I don't know, the general consensus that I'm seeing is that most don't want to see this thing develop that way, if at all. I don't know why everybody's so, or not everybody, the park board is interested in doing this, not interested. It's kind of, do you want to do it? Do you not want to do it? We don't know. And it's, the indecision is creating hostility, for lack of a better word, or it's just confusing. So I'm looking for straight answers, and, I was told at the February Park Board meeting, and I'll be brief, I promise, that we need a grant. And in order to get the grant, we got to have an entrance and an exit into that park. So they wanted to come through this the Crooked Stick next to me for the Mormon house or whatever. This was what I was told. My hearing does work. Okay, and now it's a tax levy. Well, a tax levy is not a grant, which means you don't need that entrance. So, again, this is the stuff that's up in the air. I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm getting frustrated. And I think you can kind of tell everybody around here is. And I know you guys are, and ladies. It's frustrating. So I just want some straight answers. I think everyone here would like that. and we'll just move forward. And I will be there on the 25th. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay?
Would anyone else wish to
Thanks, Steve.
address this board?
Thanks.
You gotta wait.
Sure. Cool, Kent Kushner, 8198 Capitol Drive, resident of Anderson Township for 48 years, current executive director of the Anderson Township Park District. Just would like to clear up a couple things. We have a tree on our logo also. We just had a cleanup day over at Veterans Park. We planted 600 trees. 600. You know, we're not against trees whatsoever. We do that all day long. To your point you just made, clearing up points, we got a lot of people who are throwing misinformation out. Come talk to me. I've got the answers, you know? I've got, not all the answers, but I got everything that you would need to know about Anderson Township Park District. I've been there 22 years. The parks look the way they look because of a lot of hard work, a lot of things going on. This community is a great community. We all know that. That's why we're here. You know, I'm really proud of everything we've got going on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ken.
And again, if you have questions, April the 25th, I'll be there. I'm in the office every day, except when I go on vacation in June. But come talk to me, seriously. We can work through as much as we need to. The misinformation needs to stop, because that's all it is misinformation. Everything you need to know about us is on the website. Go there.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're going to address the board, or you're going to address them?
You know, as much as I love
Sorry,
you guys.
we do have rules.
Yeah, as much as I love you guys,
Thanks,
you know,
Ken.
we're here because you've helped us get here.
It's good to be passionate. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Jack Austin, live at 1374 Plaza View Court here in Anderson Township. I'm up here for only one reason, or actually two. Number one is leave Johnson Park alone. There's nothing wrong with it. A lot of people go there with their dogs. As a matter of fact, my entire family, we're a close-knit family, and we get together and we have our birthday parties there. We're never, I mean, it's a beautiful park. We like to walk through the woods and that. Nobody bothers you. We don't bother anybody else. But you're going to put out all types of things that I understand. It may be wrong, and I'm going to stop in your office to find out, because you can tell me what's right and wrong. But I understand that you want to put in a campground. We don't need a campground. You got one down by the river. You want to put in a Frisbee golf course? We don't need a Frisbee golf course. We got another one in another park that's fine, and everybody can use it. The other part is this money spent. I hear numbers, $8 million, $20 million. Where in the world are you going to get the money? You want us to take it out of our pocket. The government sucks me in every single day. The state gets me every day. The county gets me, and now I come here, and now you want to take my money too. Now, one more quick thing. If you have to have a place for everyone to work and have an office for park people, you got this over by the sheriff's department, that big open lot, okay, that's full of junk. Clean the junk out and put trailers over there. If my school children can go to live in a trailer every day, you sure the heck can too. So back off on spending the money. We don't want to give it to you. We need it. I'm on a fixed income. And you take more of my money, I'm going to have to sell my house and get the heck out of here. And I don't want to do that. I love Anderson Township. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Anyone else? Got to go over there, Joe.
Go over there, Joe. Can't raise your hand.
You want to be excused, or do you want to speak to us?
Go to the bathroom, or you want to speak?
Across the hall. Down there.
I can do that this morning, Russ. I got up.
There you go.
My name is Joe Daly. I live at 6820 Farmbrook Drive. Been a resident of Anderson for 28 years. And I just had one question. I mentioned earlier a couple of questions. The park board, somebody owns land outside of Anderson Township. And that's the reason this issue became a legal issue. What goes on at that land?
Right next to Riverside Park, which is in Anderson. Those two homes the people who own those homes came to us and offered
Can we sell that land since it's not in Anderson and raise a little money? Maybe we could use that. I mean, why does Anderson Park Board own property that's not in Anderson?
Again, we bought that property to extend the parking lot so people can use the basement.
Well, my point is, why does an Anderson Park Board own property outside of Anderson that maybe we could sell or rent or something? Because I guess the Anderson residents don't have any control over that. Our trustees don't have any control over that, except I guess when it comes time to appoint members to the park board. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe, I was on the park board when we bought that house, just spirit of full disclosure, so.
Now that you brought up another subject, the property outside of our land in the Anderson Township, whose tax dollars pay for that? I don't hear an answer.
The ones in Newtown, we did, those residents.
Yes.
One in Fairfax, I think, was donated. One in Fairfax donated, and we, the taxpayers of Anderson Township, myself included, bought those 2 lots next to Riverside Park.
So if you have enough money that you can go spend for property outside...
Would you please address this board?
I'm sorry. I apologize.
This is our meeting.
You're right.
If you don't mind. Thank you.
Why can they take our tax dollars and buy property outside of our area of Anderson Township, and now we're struggling to spend more money that we don't want to spend and certainly don't need to spend to buy property here?
That's a question we need an answer to.
And I apologize again.
No, that's okay.
Thank you, sir.
We need that answer. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, we got another one. Okay. I said 4 hours, but I meant 5.
Robin Skiff, I live at 7011 Copper Glow Court here in Anderson Township, 40 years. I see a lot of good friends out here, a lot of folks that I grew up with. I am in favor of the Recplex. I'm hoping that that turns out to be something on par with the Blue Ash Rec Center, a place where people come that want to be there. I think that is the focus of what I think the park board should focus there. I just recently, my wife and I took a walk through the Johnson Hills property again. It's beautiful, really the way it is. Could it use a little improvement here and there? Sure. I don't disagree with that. That's not a bad thing. But I'd like to see it stay as natural as possible. And I also, my daughter went to riding lessons there, so it has a little bit more of a family attachment for me. That's really all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The reason why Blue Ash has such a spectacular recreation center is because the city of Blue Ash charges an income tax and can afford it.
Right. Yep.
And I'll answer the question about the land down in Newtown, Jack. The difference with that purchase is we did it within our budget. When I was on the board, when we bought that house, which we got for a very good deal, and it's not a very nice house, was bought to further facilitate those recreation fields and the parking down there, which, if you've ever been to a baseball game down there on the weekends, there's nowhere to park. So at some point, we knew that we might have enough money to develop more parking. So we had enough money in the operating budget, not special money. We didn't take it from something we didn't have, or we didn't ask the taxpayers for additional money to buy it. We had it, we planned for it, and that's what we used to buy it.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Barber, and I live at 7250 Notting Hill. I just moved, so
Congratulations.
I remember that. I really don't have anything of substance to say, except for that I really just want to encourage you all as leaders to use your leadership roles to take us into the future. I think we all are kind of getting wrapped up in these details, and each entity is kind of trying to get what it needs and wants out of certain things, and this goes for the schools, this goes for the parks, this goes for the trustees. Your job is to look out for the township as a whole, and I think you all know that and take that seriously, but we have to look at this as a holistic approach. And I've heard a lot of rumblings about things that are possibly could happen, that are wonderful, that aren't being talked about, and I think that's okay, but I would encourage truth, and I would encourage real foresight and real vision for this community. I grew up here, lived here since I was born, chose to come back here after living somewhere else, and there's nowhere better to live. I have young kids, I use the parks all the time, but there could be a bigger vision for the land that we have here that is beyond what we see right in front of us right now. So I hope that you all will stand strong for that, use your leadership roles for that, and you know, don't be afraid to put your neck out there and drum up support if you have big ideas. That's it.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Anyone else? Come on.
Full house like this? So few people and a full house.
That's it, with all of you here. If anyone else wishes to speak, please come forward. We got all the time in the world here, folks. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to speak extemporaneously tonight. I have no prepared comments. My name is Rosemary Hain. I live at 2040 Endo Valley Drive. And this really went under the radar screen with me, to be honest. What my background is I have a master's in public administration and public policy. I have worked in government at local level for about a range of 30 years. Every program I've administered, including the one I'm involved in now, I have been a fiscal conservative. I have managed to provide as much service as possible to improve service delivery and at the same time turn back money, reduce costs, and I take that very seriously. And I support leadership that does the same. What I have heard in all of the discussion, I do support Johnson Hills Park staying as it is, but my larger goal here is that we are very careful with the township resources. I would love to see people get behind a solid plan. I don't hear a single person that I've spoken to say anything negative about the Beach Acres property. And they recognize that as an opportunity that if missed can only show up once. We have one opportunity to buy that and develop it. When that opportunity passes, that will not be an option on the table. And I wholeheartedly support the Park District in doing so. I would like to wholeheartedly support the Park District in their endeavors in looking at improvements to parks. I have played a very active role in the school district activities with PTA president, Forest Hills Council PTA's president. I have a long history with levies. I have not ever voted against a single levy in this township. I would hate this to be the first one. So those are my comments, and I, once again, looking to all of you for moral leadership on this. You may not have legal say-so, but I do believe you have influence, and I would like to see that used in a way that does well represent the township.
Thank you.
Hello, Sue.
Hi, my name is Sue Hardenberg, and I live at 829 Indian Trace Court here in Anderson. I love our community, and I love our parks. And I just want to thank the Park Board of Commissioners for the efforts, the hard work, and all that you've done for years to keep them beautiful, well-maintained, and they're plentiful. What I ask as we go forward is that you really take a look at the big picture, as someone just mentioned, and like every family in Anderson, we have to balance our needs and our wants. We've just come through the school levy. Hamilton County just raised taxes. I just paid a chunk of taxes yesterday. Please consider your needs and your wants. And maybe right now, we just focus on Beach Acres. You know, maybe bite off one chunk that you can manage, okay? And don't try to do everything at once. Manage it well, and respect the input as you are tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's John Roberto. I live at 1929 Wanninger Lane. I enjoyed the parks. My daughter grew up, we live right next door to Julius Park, and we've used the other parks in the township. I just want to make a statement that they are great parks, but to round everything out, I think having something like a natural preserve like Johnson Hill is would really help the whole township be more rounded. That's about all I want to say. I'd hate to see
Thank you.
natural beauty get lost.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. With that, we're going to close the public forum portion of this meeting and move on to trustees' comments. If I may start, I'll try to be brief, just to give you a little background of what has transpired here. Board members individually and collectively have been working with the Park District on the issue of doing something about the healthplex, of the recplex. And we know that there's great passion here on the part of the people who operate the parks, and we've been looking at various ways to see if we can't help them be creative. Up until last Friday, we had no idea that the number was going from the recplex to the number that you all saw in the paper. I think that we've tried to use our influence with the park board to get them to reconsider that effort and come back to the basics of what this thing should have been all about. I can tell you for myself, had we not been made aware that this issue was by the Attorney General is going to give us his opinion, I personally would have voted against supporting the issue that was originally to be requested. But we're going to continue to work to see if we can't make something good come out of that. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody wants this, everybody wants that. They don't want to develop this, they don't want to develop that. We do look at a long-term plan. We've worked very hard to develop a long-term plan, but we also are concerned about taxation. It's a heck of an issue. People say all the time, taxes are too high. Perhaps they are, but I can tell you this, that we've only had one township tax levy, one, in the last 15 years. So we've been fairly frugal. I shouldn't say frugal. We have been wise in our expenditures. We haven't been cheap. We've been frugal. How's that? So we understand fully the issue that each of you are dealing with, because we're dealing with those same issues. And we're going to do everything in our power to try to have a good thing come out of this within whatever restrictions we can work, since we no longer have authority to approve levies on the ballot. Mr. Garth?
I agree with what Mr. Jackson said. I mean, if you want to know my opinion, if we had to vote for the biggest levy that was going to be presented, I would not have agreed to it. I would argue that other than the Park District members and the board members that are here tonight, that I'm probably the biggest proponent of our park system in this room. I have served on the board. I still serve on the Parks Foundation board. I know our community wants more indoor recreation space. I run into it all the time with my kids. I hear about it from other families, and I saw it firsthand when I served on the board at the Park District. That being said, what the Park District survey failed to mention, which I'm going to reveal to everybody right now, is that there are several other options for Beach Acres. And while I cannot discuss the details of those options specifically tonight, everyone in this room, everyone watching on TV, everyone out there soon, courtesy of Sheila when she writes this in the Journal tomorrow, they should know that I have been talking for months now about alternatives for Beach Acres. These options, every single one of them, include the Park District and the construction of either a renovated recreation complex, an expanded recreational complex, or a brand-new recreational complex, and this is important, at absolutely no cost to the taxpayers. And I wonder if the survey results could have presented these options as alternatives, how the survey would have come out. Now, unfortunately, we don't know what they exactly are. But while the Anderson Township Park District Board tabled this tonight and plan to revisit, I also plan to continue down the path exploring these alternative options. Now, I do not want people to think that we are at war with the Park District, okay? And if you've been paying attention, and judging by the crowd in this room, people have been paying attention, you will know that about 3 weeks ago, I called a meeting between the Forest Hill School District Board, the Anderson Township Parks District Board, and the Board of Township Trustees. We met in executive session for, correct me if I'm wrong, the first time in history? I mean, in exec.
The first time in the 20 years that I've been here.
All right, well, that's good enough history for me.
First time in the 70 I've been here.
All right.
70.
Proven point right there. The founder of Anderson just proved it. I say that because it was a very good meeting. And everyone that attended that meeting, there was only one person missing, and it was one person from the school district board, everyone agreed to explore an option at Beach Acres that could be a game changer for this community. And if we can't pull it off because of a particular insurmountable hurdle, like finances, then we are not going to do it, but at least we've laid the foundation in this township, whereby these three entities can explore other alternatives that not only benefit each of them, but benefit the entire 45,000 people in Anderson Township and the communities that surround it. And Elizabeth, you said it, that's what I feel we were elected to do, and that is what I am going to try and figure out.
Mr. Pepps.
Well, to no one's real surprise, I'll just announce it, that had this come to a vote tonight, I would have been a no. And I thank everyone for coming tonight, but what I'd like to ask you is, or I hope that you had an opportunity to read the latest Forest Hills Journal that was delivered to your house. And one of the headlines, the biggest article, was talking about the cuts to local government fund, the township coffers. So how do I tie that into what's going on with the proposed levy that the Park District was going to do but is now not? I am also in favor of protecting and expanding the recplex at Beach Acres. I would like to see if there is a way that rather than say an all-or-nothing approach in the future, that we could have something that actually increases the tax base in Anderson Township and gets us more tax revenue so that we are more solvent and not borrowing from our savings to keep going. As Mr. Jackson said, we haven't had an operating levy for the township in 15 years. That is astounding. I want you to think about that for a second. But that comes from dipping into some of our reserves or borrowing some money from funds we've set aside. I don't, not borrowing, using funds we've set aside. I don't want that trend to continue. So I also am a taxpayer. I own my houses here, of course, and I own private land here. I have my businesses here. I pay double taxes, sort of. I pay on both. Many of you might. So I respect and really appreciate the job that the Parks Board has done in the past, but what has turned me off from day one about this was an all-or-nothing approach with Beach Acres. I think there's a way that we could do both. Compromise seems to be the word of the day, and I'd like to see that happen in this particular instance. Now, their plans going forward, I'm not happy with the fact that we don't have a vote on this. I'm not happy at all, and I'll let you know that, because I've been approached by many residents that have said, how can this be? That our elected officials can't decide, have a say over something that gets put on the ballot. Well, through the nuances, we're created by statute, and we have to abide by those statutes. So I'd like to see that rectified at some point, or some way to rectify that we could control something that gets on the ballot and protects you. So I thank you all for coming, and I just want you to know that this board is trying to work and think outside the box. And we were here really to protect not only one particular, not just the trustee board or the Parks Board or any particular entity in Anderson, but we're here to protect all of Anderson. And sometimes that's give and take. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going forward into our other reports. Our fiscal officer has been silent. Mr. Dietz?
Thank you. I do have a comment about what has happened here tonight. I think the most important thing that I've heard and seen from everybody here, that we are going to continue to work on this, pound away, and find a resolution to what we all need to work together on. Very important that we keep working on. Thank you. Our financial reports have come in at the end of March. They pretty much reflect what our settlement report is that we got from the Hamilton County Auditor yesterday. Revenues, which is on that report, are slightly above what we had anticipated. Our expenditures are slightly below what we have planned on, so we keep plugging away on that. And no appropriation changes, so that's my report.
Ooh, that's good. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. We have three sets of minutes that need approval.
Go ahead, Josh.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 19th, 2015, March 5th, 2015, and March 19th, 2015.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Gerth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. I have added to our agenda was a report from State Representative Tom Brinkman. I'm going to read his report. He cannot make it. They've really rearranged the schedule up there to make it difficult for him to be here like he used to. We're losing our crowd. Here is Mr. Brinkman's report. I'm working on many issues on your behalf in Columbus. Here are three that have received much of my attention. First, I added an amendment to the transportation budget that will force the Ohio Department of Transportation to finally come to a decision on a route for the Eastern Corridor project by December 31st, 2015, or walk away from the project forever. And forever is a long, long time. Frankly, the project has gone on for way too long, and my constituents deserve a decision in order to move along with their lives in the beautiful little Miami River Valley. This amendment does not stop any work on the current Red Bank Road, nor the reconstruction of the Eastgate exit off of I-275, which includes approach routes from Newtown east toward Eastgate. While negotiating this amendment, ODOT promised that they would send the Hamilton County delegation to the Ohio General Assembly a letter stating that should ODOT decide to walk away from the project, all funds would stay in Hamilton County for other ODOT projects. I'm not in possession of the letter as of yet, and I'm not holding my breath. This is just another reason why I had to act through legislation to force ODOT's hand. Second, I've been working with the township administrator and other affected entities, some township and some municipalities, to collect funds promised to the township during negotiations between the state of Ohio and the Racinos. Meetings have been held, amendments to the budget bill have been drafted, and leadership has been engaged to move this ahead. We still have a ways to go on this, but it is a priority, and I will see it through. Third, during my past service in the Ohio General Assembly, I instigated an omnibus township bill, either as a sponsor or co-sponsor, during all 4 sessions of service. I met with Heidi Fott of the Ohio Township Association a few weeks ago to begin the process for the 131st session of the Ohio General Assembly. Heidi wanted to wait and see what was in the operating budget before putting several items forward. Meanwhile, I'm gathering ideas from my colleagues and trust that you will also submit ideas to be included in the bill. Finally, I want to thank you for the close working relationship we enjoy and trust you will never hesitate to contact me should you think I may be of service. Respectfully submitted, Tom Brinkman. Thank you. Okay. Moving forward, Law Director?
I have no further report.
Planning and Zoning, Paul Drury.
There's a resolution for your consideration for providing supplemental appropriation with respect to the removal of an unsafe structure, which is located at 7867 Anchor Road. When we approached the board last month with this property, we had estimated and anticipated asbestos in the home, and once our contractor went to the property, it was determined it was unsafe to even enter to remove the asbestos, so therefore it's called a dirty demolition, and the entire property will have to be abated. So we are requesting additional funding to do so.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to adopt a resolution providing for supplemental appropriation with respect to the removal of unsafe structure on land owned by Ricky A. Taylor and located at 7867 Anchor Road in Anderson Township, Ohio.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Sheriff's Department. Lieutenant Matt Guy.
Good evening. There is but one brief item on the agenda pertaining to our department. You should have before you a request for a liquor license transfer. It is for the Gruel and Son Sunoco LLC, located at 6090 Salem Road. Doesn't seem to have the DBA. I assume it's just Sunoco or Salem Sunoco. Our agency has no objections to this transfer.
Thank you. I would move that we not object to a liquor license transfer request for Gruel and Son Sunoco LLC, 6090 Salem Road.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Works Department. Richard Shelley.
My ego had led me to believe this crowd was about the purchase of a salt truck. But since that's not the case, let's get on with the 2 items I have before the board. Item 1, of course, is the Hamilton County Stormwater Grant. As Mr. Jackson can attest to, several years ago, we agreed as a community to participate in the Hamilton, should I say we were twisted into participating. Coerced is a good word. Into a process by which all jurisdictions could join, therefore teaming up to save costs to each jurisdiction when it comes to tackling both the paperwork and the capital improvements of stormwater. As a part of that, that stormwater group has set aside a certain amount of capital funds each year that could then be put back toward infrastructure-related repairs. We made application last year for a what is a 10-foot steel arch structure that runs under Robin Way. Probably most of the people in the subdivision don't even know it's there. But because of the critical nature of Robin Way, the amount of houses in Sherwood Forest, and the fact that it has very limited access and egress points out the front or the back of the subdivision, we thought it critical in nature to go ahead and try an alternative form of repair for this pipe without waiting till it completely fails and having to open dig the road. So we submitted for a grant application for making all the repairs by a process called gunite and doing it in place and not disturbing, essentially using the existing pipe as a form and spraying in concrete and mesh a whole new pipe that will have a lifespan of close to 50 years. So what you have before you, and I briefly laid out,
is the process that would get us closer to that reality. The Hamilton County Stormwater has awarded us a $75,000 grant toward that venture. It's yet to be determined how much we're going to have to participate in that, but we believe we can get it done for about that price.
Do we have a motion?
I would move to authorize acceptance of the $75,000 Hamilton County Stormwater District Capital Improvement Project Program Award, code AT-ERS-001.
Second.
I think there was a second there. Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you.
Item B is why we're all here, and that is the purchase of a new salt truck to replace one that is showing some age, so to speak, and from 1999, it's showing a lot of rust. You know, the problem with the trucks, we try to get about 15 to 20 years out of them. What goes first when they're in the salt, they're in the salt on an annual basis, is the frames start to rust, and we start to see some wear and tear. And it's, while it doesn't have a lot of miles on it, this particular truck, it is really showing some frame wear. So the board had actually approved this purchase order back in 2013, I believe, and this purchase request is out of TIF funds.
And we're going to try something different?
We are, as I had spoke to Mr. Jackson in great detail.
Truck guy.
A typical truck for us is a 7400 Miami International model, and what we're trying is a Freightliner version of the same thing. And as I laid out to the board, the reasons for that were tighter turning radius. With our 450 cul-de-sacs, it's always a challenge of us to find something that works best there. Better visibility, better ergonomics for the driver, and of course, the price is a couple $1,000s cheaper.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I move to, you want to take it?
No, I know you want to, so go ahead. I know, that's why I'm going to let you do it.
I move to authorize the purchase of one Freightliner dump truck pursuant to Section 505.101 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank
Keep us posted on how that thing works out.
I sure will.
Thank you. Okay. Chief Mark Ober.
Good evening. The only thing I have to discuss tonight is a resolution authorizing the execution of the Fire and EMS Mutual Aid Agreement. We in Hamilton County are all involved in a mutual aid agreement. In 2002, we brought change forward with some legislation, revised code, and things like that. It's time for us to update, as a county fire chiefs organization, our mutual aid plan. As part of that, they've asked each community to do so. With the assistance of Margaret and Vicki, they've taken a look at it, and we've made some adjustments that we feel are appropriate. So we'd like to enter into a new agreement.
I would move to adopt a resolution authorizing execution of Fire EMS Mutual Aid Agreement.
Second.
Do you have any discussion? I always vote for something that has execution in the title. I always like that.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief. Okay. Then we have Administrator Mrs. Vicki Earhart and friends.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Mr. Severs is going to be presenting the road construction listing for 2015 first.
Good evening, and I'll do my best to be brief. It's been a long night and a lot of good comments. Each spring, the township for the past dozen or so years has maintained a listing by collecting information from various entities and organizations on road construction projects affecting the Anderson area. We learned many years ago no one else was going to do it, so we need to kind of protect our own. And we've since done this every year since that time. It was 2003 when we started. This year's list, I'm actually pleased to see that we don't have too many conflicts. We have some projects that are wrapping up, and the map is probably a little bit tricky to see, but I'll try to point out some highlights from that. Indicates that I think most of the projects will complement each other quite well, and hopefully residents will be able to avoid major delays. The interstate improvement project at State Road 32, just outside of Anderson Township, is well underway, and that project will go through the rest of 2015 into early 2016 up in this area. Another project we've been working on for quite some time is the Little Miami Trail Extension, and I'm pleased to say that construction will begin this summer. This is from the Little Miami Golf Center right here on the north end of Anderson Township, down through Clear Creek Park and down to Beachmont Avenue. It will put us just one, unfortunately, expensive bridge away from connecting to the Lunken Airport Trail and on downtown from that location, and then conversely that will eventually wrap itself around through the neighborhood of California out to our Ohio River Trail. But we're very pleased with the partnership that we've had with the Little Miami Park District on that project and the State Department of Transportation for helping fund that work. Other work that you see denoted on here, there are some utility work along Broadwell Road for a major line coming across from the village of Fairfax out to Union Township. There's a sewer project that's finally moving forward up in the Mount Carmel, Vic Barb, Apple Blossom area.
Finally.
Finally, in the eastern part of the community. Some other work down in the Watch Hill area, and then the main focus of this year will be in the Beachmont and 5 Mile area. The continuous flow intersection project, some of the utility work has already begun for that project. You see the gas work that's been occurring on 5 Mile Road during the evenings. Utility work will dominate kind of the construction for this year. In fact, most of the construction won't begin until after March 1st of 2016. Ohio Department of Transportation, who is bidding that project on our behalf, was very cognizant of our desire not to see that torn up over the winter. They would allow contractors to move ahead if work is ahead of schedule, but they want to make sure that traffic is flowing through the winter season and through the holidays. The other project related to that is on the other side of the Anderson Town Center, and that is the beginning of work we call Phase 1 of Town Center Way. That involves the vacation or the elimination of Town Center Way from Bowen Street south to Beachmont. This is essentially on the east side of the Kroger store. That road will be relocated to connect over to Wolfangle Road. This is something that Kroger is working with the county engineer on and the abutting property owners, and there will be a new traffic signal at the corner of Bowen and Wolfangle Road in that area. Just one second, I'll come right back to you. With that, the county is also widening Wolfangle Road from 2 lanes to 3 lanes from Bowen south to Beachmont. It will allow for a turn lane in both directions, including onto Anderson and onto Bowen at that location, as well as the southbound. I believe there's a right turn lane as well. Is that right, Mr. Drury, into Bowen, if you're heading south on Wolfangle as well. So again, that is a project that the county and Kroger are working on. We are working closely with that, and our hope is that we would come forth with Phase 2 of Town Center Way in probably the latter part of 2016 that would go from where they take off north to 5 Mile Road up here by the office development. Again, the other projects, this will all be posted on our website in the morning. It will be posted on Facebook as well. There will be the listing of the paving projects that Mr. Shelley is involved with. I believe those are all streets that you were doing curb and sidewalk on last year, so the same streets will be finishing up work there. There are some other minor projects out to our east as well for folks that are traveling that way. And then one of the projects that's not denoted on this map, but for those that traverse to southeast Indiana on a frequent basis for work, travel, casinos, etc., the Cropper, the exact name, the Cropper Bridge that goes across 275 there from Kentucky to Indiana will be 1 lane starting May 4th through November. So there will be significant delays going through that area as that road narrows, and eventually there'll be 2 lanes of traffic on one side of the bridge, which as a narrowed bridge to begin with will be quite fun, but should be completed by the time Perfect North season opens in November for those of us to head over that way. So I know there was a question, Ms. Austin, you had a question that the board does. I'll be happy to try to address this. They are still in the process of acquiring the right-of-way for that project, mainly for that right turn lane if you're heading southbound north of Bowen. That project probably won't go to bid till summer. I don't anticipate construction probably till fall, and hopefully Mr. Shelley's pushing his finger over into 2016. But as I've heard from Kroger officials, they would be building the store today if they could get that road moved out of the way. So they're very anxious to move that forward, and that's the last thing that's holding their project up from moving forward. So the work on that will basically go from the driveway that is behind the former Kmart and Kroger that goes over towards Cinco Credit Union, from there south to Beachmont. That is where the work area will be. That this end of the road will not be impacted this year. So, if there's any questions of the board.
Steve, thank you. We don't have the trauma that we had last year having Tough Pike closed that caused a disaster on Beachmont, so that's great.
It is, and the one thing that's not shown on here, which is a project we've been talking about for a while, is the Beachmont project, which involves the modification of about 20 driveways. That'll happen in 2016 as well. in conjunction with the CFI.
But that won't
project.
impact traffic.
It'd be mainly night-type construction work, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the CFI, for that matter, as well, and we'll have a pretty extensive summary of that in the next Anderson Insights that comes out in about 2 weeks. Most of the work that impacts the public will happen overnight. That is the hope that 2 lanes of traffic would be open in all directions at all times during the day. So,
Thank you for putting that together,
Thanks, Steve.
So beneficial.
Ms. Parker has the next update for the board.
I'm happy to report that we now have a little over 1,300 residents, households, I should say, enrolled in our electricity preferred pricing program, the discount program for purchasing electricity through Duke Energy Retail. And while I'm talking about Duke Energy Retail, residents have probably by now all received a letter announcing that the Dinergy Corporation has purchased the electricity production side of Duke Energy Retail. Duke retains the poles, the wires, the delivery mechanisms. They will still issue the billing statements, but this other company has acquired the production side. They are out of Houston, Texas. From everything I can find, a credible company, and as far as service delivery to our residents, we should not see any sort of a blip. And if I may interject a very good thing, we recently received a check from our insurance, property insurance and company, property and casualty insurance, OTARMA. And it's just for slightly under $10,000. It's part of the rebate that they give to their members. It's part of belonging to a nonprofit purchasing group for liability type insurance. And almost every year, they're able to give us a rebate because premiums are funded at a higher rate than the claims for the previous year. So once again, we're benefiting from that at a little over $9,550. Good.
Excellent. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thanks.
Next item we have before the board also has execution in the title, Mr. Jackson. It is a resolution which would authorize the execution of a cooperative agreement with Core Resources. The Board of Township Trustees has the statutory authority to use tax increment financing dollars when appropriate to promote economic development, thereby increasing the tax base for the township and also increasing the number of job opportunities for residents within the township. One such opportunity has presented itself to the board, and that is to use these tax increment financing dollars to assist with the demolition of properties that will be turned over, and Core Resources is opening the Silver Ladle Restaurant and also Dewey's Pizza on Beachmont Avenue. To facilitate that economic development, the board can authorize funding. The TIF dollars that are recommended in this agreement would amount to $25,836, which is equivalent to what the township will receive in tax increment financing dollars once that development is completed. And so it would be essentially 1 year of our TIF revenue that we would provide to the developer in advance to facilitate the development on Beachmont Avenue. So there is a resolution before you. The cooperative agreement, our law director, Ms. Comey, has drafted. It has been sent to Core Resources for their review and input, and we're not quite ready to sign that, but assuming that everything goes well, this would authorize me to sign that agreement.
Do we have a motion?
I would move to adopt a resolution authorizing execution of cooperative agreement with Core Resources Incorporated.
Second.
Discussion? Just one thing, when we've had very few times that we've ever actually used any economic development dollars, but the difference here is that we don't do ours until after the applicant has performed completely and thoroughly what was promised, so we don't have to worry about people going back on their promises.
Correct. The development, part of the agreement language requires that the development be completed, and after it is completed, at that point, that's when the check would be cut if they have performed, correct?
Thank you.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. There are no items arising from executive session discussion this evening. That's all we have.
Okay, for those of you who haven't left or fallen asleep, our next regular monthly meeting, board meeting, is scheduled for May 21st of 2015 at 6 p.m. If you have any questions, you can call 688-8400. We expect just as big a crowd next month, so we're expecting you all to be there.
What are we going to do?
With that, we thank you for coming. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.